What's up, guys? This is David from Everything Ethics, and the ethical philosophy we're talking about today is Kantian ethics. Kantian ethics is also known as deontological ethics or duty ethics, and was created in the 18th century by the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. The main principle of Kantian ethics is that acts are not good or bad because of the results they create, but that acts are good or bad in themselves. So what does that mean? Well, this approach to ethics is the opposite of consequentialism, which looks solely to the results of an action to determine its ethicality. Kantian ethics ignores the results and simply looks at the actions as ethical or unethical. And under Kantian ethics, you have a duty to do the ethical actions and a duty to avoid the unethical actions. So, how do we determine if an action is ethical? Well, Kant uses what he calls the categorical imperative to determine what is ethical, and the categorical imperative has a few rules. So, the first rule is that for every action you do, you should want it to be universal, meaning that everyone should be able to do it and the world would be just fine if everyone did that. If the action cannot be universal, then the action is strictly prohibited. Okay, let's go through an example of an action that can be universalized. Let's say I was a tenant, and I really enjoyed the property that I lived on, and I wanted to tip the landlord for all her hard work. Well, if everyone tipped landlords, assuming that they could, that wouldn't be an issue. Landlords would just get more money, so this is ethical. Let's go through another example. Let's say I was in 7-Eleven, and I really wanted some gum, but I didn't have any money, so I wanted to shoplift it. Well, shoplifting is fine for me, and it doesn't really hurt anybody that much if I do it. However, if everyone were to shoplift, all convenience stores would shut down because nobody would pay for anything, and I wouldn't want that. Therefore, shoplifting cannot be universalized and is unethical. Now, let's look at the flip side, paying for the gum. If everyone were to pay for their stuff, the world would be just fine, and therefore, paying for gum is ethical. However, it's not just ethical to pay for gum, but it's also a duty, because the alternative, shoplifting, is unethical. Going back to the landlord example, tipping is ethical, but it's not a duty, because if nobody were to tip their landlord, the world would also be just fine. Thus, both actions are technically ethical, so you could just choose what you wanted to do. Okay, so we said shoplifting is unethical, but what about lying? Well, in a world where everyone lied, nobody could trust anyone and society would fall apart. So, lying is not universal and is therefore unethical. So under Kantian ethics, we would seemingly have a duty not to lie no matter the consequences. You can probably see where this is going. Let's say you were living in Nazi Germany during the Holocaust, and you were in your house, and you were hiding a Jewish person, and a Nazi came up to your house and asked you, "Are you hiding any Jews?" Well, the seemingly reasonable thing to do is to lie and say, "No, of course not." However, under the categorical imperative, you have a duty to tell the truth regardless of the result of you telling the truth. So, you would have to sell out the Jewish person that you were hiding to the Nazis. Pretty bad result. So the universality point is mediocre, but let's see the other main point in the categorical imperative, which is never treat another human as a mere means. Only treat humans as ends. So what is a means? A means is basically an object with the purpose of advancing to some goal. So for example, a fork is a means to eat food. This YouTube video is a means to learn about Kantian ethics. So those are means. Ends are just the results, the final goal. So an end would be getting food or learning. So when Kant says treat humans as ends, he means don't ever use them like you would use an object. When dealing with people, you have to acknowledge their humanity. They must obviously consent, and you must have goodwill towards them. So a classic example of treating humans as a means is slavery. An example of treating a human as an end would be like me hiring a plumber to fix my sink. Even though I'm using the plumber for something, I'm paying him, he's voluntarily coming on his own will, and I'm not mistreating him. The plumber is not beholden to whatever I want, and I must treat him well, or as an end, to get my sink fixed. The key thing to know about deontological ethics is that it's not the results that matter, it's the action itself that matters. So if you ever find yourself using someone like a tool, or you acting in a way that cannot be universalized, then you are breaking the categorical imperative and are acting unethically. See you in the next video.